sufficient for getting everybody else signed in that needs to speak. We'll go ahead and get started. So we'll start with the June 2nd, 2025 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look those over? Any questions or comments?
No.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion on those?
I make the motion that we accept the minutes as is.
Okay, motion by Frank,
Second.
second by Jeremy. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are good. And Charlie, you need both copies, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, one for me, one for the office.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Check there. Okay, as soon as she gets done. Okay, if you want to pause up there, for anybody who is speaking today, can you please follow the directions of Mr. Charlie Perkins on being sworn in?
Everyone planning to speak, if you could stand and raise your right hand, please. I'd be satisfied if half of you sat back down.
Thank you, Charlie.
Do you swear or affirm the statements you're to make tonight to be the truth to the best of your information and belief? Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. No old applications, so we'll get started with the new applications, letter A. And I think, Rhett, you said you were doing that.
Yes.
Should be good as soon as they finish up there to take the podium when ready. Thank you. Oh, baby. Now something. All right, thank you all. Rhett, podium's open for you.
Let's see here. Let me get these things to Mr. Perkins.
Thank you.
Okay, so first application of the evening is a variance application, 215 Connector Road. Dan Cummins of Georgetown is bringing the application. Variance request for additional signage on the parcel to include pylons, monuments, and building signage. It's a B2 zone, our highway commercial, just over 5 acres in size. Again, Connector Road off Paris Pike. Overall recommendation is denial. Here's the parcel in question. It looks a little bit different than that picture today. Let's see. Again, just confirming that it is in our highway commercial area. When we consider variance applications, we go by the language as mandated by state statute, 100.243. Before any variance is granted, the board must find that the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. In making these findings, the board shall consider whether the requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the general vicinity or in the same zone, whether the strict application of the provisions of the regulation would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land or would create an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and whether the circumstances are a result of the actions of the applicant taken subsequent to the adoption of the zoning regulation from which relief is sought. And finally, the board shall deny any request for variance arising from circumstances that are the result of willful violations of the zoning regulation by the applicant subsequent to the adoption of the zoning regulation from which relief is sought. It is the applicant's burden to provide evidence that justifies the requirements as set forth by the ordinance. An administrative decision granting relief to one having the burden of proof must be supported by findings based on substantial evidence and fact. Without support, the decision will be deemed arbitrary. So, this variance pertains to our general Georgetown sign ordinance. The sign ordinance defines a sign as any device, fixture, placard, or structure that uses any color, form, graphic, illumination, symbol, or writing to advertise, announce the purpose of, or identify the purpose of a person or entity, or to communicate information of any kind to the public. So, moving on to the general proposal here, this is a site plan as submitted by the applicant, detailing the monument, freestanding sign style stuff that they've proposed along the connector road frontage here. Bottom left, you see a pylon sign detailing a portion of the brands that they propose to sell there. There in the middle, you've probably seen them before. It's a faux rock structure that they would park vehicles on that has Jeep branding on it. That constitutes as a monument sign. And then also a additional freestanding sign that solely advertises the Jeep brand in and of itself. So Section 6 of our ordinance states that properties in B2 zones are limited to one freestanding sign. As seen before, they're proposing 3. Let's see here. I've gotten ahead of myself. However, the applicant has shown in a previous submittal that there is an option to co-locate the Jeep brand onto the multi-tenant sign as shown in the previous picture. So again, being that they've shown that the ability to be within the ordinance is available, any variation from the ordinance must be deemed, a denial as arbitrary, essentially. The sign is also in compliance with the dimensional regulations. If they were to do the co-located option, they could do all brands on one sign in lieu of the separate sign. The monument sign, again, because it does have the Jeep branding on it, the faux rock, it does constitute a sign, which again would cross over the number of maximum allowable signs in the district. As a result, staff finds there's no demonstrable hardship to constitute the allowance of variance and recommends denial of the additional pylon sign as well as the faux rock sign. This is from a package submitted previously. There was a postponement in this application. Again, this details the ability of the applicant to co-locate all brands on one sign. There are a varied amount of options that have different square footage. Again, we allow a maximum of 150 square feet. There is an item within that table that would allow for that dimensional to be achieved. So, this just talks again about the faux rockscape. Again, there is no demonstrable hardship to allow for this sign. So again, staff recommends denying the request for this sign as well. This is the frontage of the building as proposed. They do propose to have individual signs for each brand they sell, as well as a general name, Dan Cummins logo on the front of the building as well. There is some directional signage which staff deems appropriate for the service base, things of that nature. But by the strict interpretation of the ordinance, we only allow one sign per road frontage. This only has one road frontage at a maximum of 150 square feet for that sign. Granted, these individual signs, if you were to add them up individually, I think actually as proposed, they still go beyond the 150 square feet. There are options that have been presented that could bring the total below 150 square feet. However, strict application of the ordinance does limit them to one wall sign. As such, staff has to deny the request for this as well. And this is again just showing the different tiers and sizes of the signs made available to them, probably a little more clear in your packet. In this proposal, the applicant has chosen the largest tier of signs. If you add all these up to include also the Jeep sign and the Dan Cummins sign, it's well above the 150 square feet. And this is just a detailing here. As proposed, it's 178 total square feet of wall signage as defined by the ordinance. Again, spread up amongst different signs. This property does fall within the envelope of what we call interstate sign eligibility. It's, within a certain location of interstate interchanges, things of that nature. Businesses within this zone would be allowed to have a larger, taller pole sign, visible from the interstate as traffic is coming and going. The ordinance also goes on to state that the property owner may relinquish this right to an interstate sign and add that 150 square feet of sign to an area on the subject property for any other permitted sign on the property. This option would allow for the expansion of any sign permitted by right, but not the granting of additional signs. So if you look at the language, basically it says anything you're permitted to have by right, you may expand that size by the size you're foregoing. The applicant has provided a justification statement, which you've seen as well, that requests applying this allowance toward granting of an additional freestanding sign, but staff has determined this would not meet the intent of the ordinance. So we're not in support of adding that square footage in that manner. Again, it's a 5.5 acre site in the B2 zone. Georgetown site ordinances gives the allowances and restrictions for the signs within the zone. The variance requested and the justification provided by the applicant do not meet the requirements of KRS 10243 as it pertains to the granting of variances. So again, staff does recommend denial of the requested variances. If the board does choose to approve the request or any of, any assortment of, whether it be some or all or none, we do recommend some conditions of approval. Property being subject to all requirements of our zoning ordinance and the subdivision and development regulations. Applicant shall comply with all requirements of other federal, state, and local bodies. And then the applicant shall return to the board prior to any changes in the approved conditions. Are there any questions for me for now? If not, I'm sure the applicants would be willing to make their case.
On the zone ordinance,
Mhm.
Is that based on the fact that they have 5.5 acres and another business would have the same thing happen?
No, the allotments of sign is just
Road frontage.
just the road frontage. Yeah, for every 1 foot of frontage, essentially you get up to a maximum of 150 square feet. That standardizes it. Doesn't matter the lot size, building size, anything of that nature. Granted, we do see big box stores and things come in that are like, hey, we need a bigger sign. And we're like, well, hey, rules say X, Y, Z. So it just standardizes things.
Okay.
Any other questions about the ordinance and the way it speaks or anything of that nature? Okay.
All right. Thanks, Rhett. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of this, either for or against, or the applicant?
Maybe see if they're against first.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Josh Cummins. I'm the owner of Dan Cummins of Georgetown. Appreciate you taking your time to do this. The reason why we are requesting the variance to have the additional monument sign is because the parent company, Stellantis, has moved toward brand separation. And that's why you see the design of the building where one side is the Chrysler Dodge Ram and the other side is specifically Jeep. In a lot of applications, they prefer to have even 2 separate buildings where we would have to come here and do different, break up the property and whatever is necessary that we would have to go through. But we did have the option to combine the building, but they really are going for the brand separation. And that's why we have this monument sign, which they call a totem, which is nearly 600 feet apart from the other sign. And it really ties into the building and helps us make sure that we follow the brand standards that they are asking us to follow. Naturally, yes, it's the cheaper way to go to have one sign, but that's not the whole point on the redesign of the building, which I'm obligated to do as the Jeep dealer. As you know, with the property the way that it was there on Cherry Blossom, it really did not have representation, didn't really have its own showroom and service department. So since 2019, I've been required to find the piece of property, get a great spot, and then go through this process here in Georgetown, which things have been great. As you know, we once were going to try and build near that Planet Fitness, but received a little bit of objection from the nearby neighborhoods, and so we withdrew. And I added some time to the equation, but we found a much better suitable property for the project. And in my opinion, I feel that versus constructing another 110-foot interstate sign, which I have the right to do being in that zone, which I don't think those are attractive at all. I think we could go with this, have a very nice, attractive sign that would add to the look of the area. So that's why we're here seeking the variance for those monument signs.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant specific? Okay.
Not that it would apply for the property, but we do have signage at its current location. Those would be removed from the buildings, and we do also have an existing freestanding sign that looks like the one there on the bottom left on the Cherry Blossom property. So, you know, if in adding a sign where I'd be required to, where I would agree, hey, well, take down that one as well, versus, you know, changing lettering and things like that, that'd be willing to do so. So,
Okay,
thanks for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on behalf of this or against? Okay. Anything else from the board or any questions, or anybody like to make a motion?
I've actually worked with floor planning through the commercial lending avenue in my previous life, and these brands are very particular. Mercedes won't even let you brand usually with another. So he's making a very good point that it does have to be separate, and that's not his choice. That's what they're gonna require for him to sell Jeep. So I know that is something that is normal for dealerships to have to deal with.
You know, I don't know, is there any, in the work of the other options, which I know it may not matter, but is there any way they can separate with the other options you've discussed with them?
I'm not sure I've gathered.
You
with
said there was
chairs.
some other options.
Well,
them.
for like this one, that previously had been shown that you could co-locate all the brands on the one pole sign. But that doesn't get us away from the request for the faux rock, the thing you park on, nor the building signage. Now, again, and the reason why I brought that previous slide up as it pertains to the state statute, it is the applicant's burden to, you know, provide a statement that would justify, you know, reasonable hardship that would not create an unreasonable circumvention of the ordinance. That is up for the chair and the board to decide. However, you know, as the ordinance states explicitly, not much of this really fits within the bounds of. Granted, that's why the process for variance exists.
But wouldn't the hardship be that the brand is requesting it be separate? That's what I think. You guys tell me if you think different.
We've done that before. I don't know that it was actually built out, I don't recall, but we've done that before where a brand required, I don't remember if it was separation or just what it was, but it was a brand requirement, and the variance was to meet that because otherwise they weren't gonna get the brand. Again, I don't recall that actually played all the way out, but we did in fact grant the variance for that.
Right.
Don't know that it was maybe as extensive as this one, but we have in fact on that basis. It's been a while, but we've done it at least once.
If the board pleases, I could yield back to the applicant. They could speak more to that than I ever could.
I think he raised his hand there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is the brand requirement. In looking at the design with the Jeep mountain rock landscape, as you can see, it does say Jeep on the front of it, which you have to consider it to be a monument sign, just based off the written rules. An idea for us would be, you know, I very much care about the look and the aesthetics of the place. It's going to be a beautiful facility. What I could get them, Stellantis, to agree to do is to eliminate the branding of the Jeep from that and go with a more of a natural landscaped setup, because we do have to elevate and display a Jeep. And by doing that, we could eliminate one of the monument signs that we're requesting and go with an elevated Jeep, rocks, and just landscaping in that same location. And I still would request that we have the separate Jeep totem to match the brand separation on the building.
And that would still be a recommendation of denial because of the two other ones?
Yes.
Staff's general recommendation is based on the number of signages, not which
Right.
sign is which. It's
Okay.
to the board's discretion to make a recommendation.
Is there any, is there any other thing, I guess with the, burden of proof being that they couldn't do what they wanted to do, would this mean that you just couldn't move forward with proposing what you want to do?
Proposing what we would want to do with
Yeah.
the two signs, the
Right.
Jeep totem?
There would be no other option for,
No. Two separate buildings, but I'm well past that. Have you driven by? It's going up.
yeah. But
So how many signs will it be? You're talking about putting on the front, how many signs? Now, you said the Jeep, I've heard Jeep several times, Dave.
Yes.
Store frontage?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, on the store frontage,
Okay.
we have each brand that we sell,
Okay.
Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and also Jeep, as you see on that other side of the building, as well as our brand name, Dan Cummins.
But all that would be allowed there in the ordinance is one.
One.
Mhm.
Which would be- Yeah, it's kinda tough.
In measuring them all out, we are just over the allowed 150 square feet. However, were we to forego our right to that interstate sign, then we're granted another 150 feet, and then we're well below.
But you're still having multiple separate
Then it comes
signs
to, yes,
instead of just one.
I'll give up the Jeep rock landscape with that Jeep signage, landscape it, elevated Jeep, and then have a sign that matches those two buildings, which I happen to be connected, but I consider them two different branded buildings.
I don't know, it's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
it is. It's a
I
lot.
think it falls in line with a car dealership. I mean, there are car dealerships that have multiple brands, and I think as long as it's done tastefully, and I don't doubt it will be, I think that it's not near a residential area.
What?
You see the whole space one side, right?
Yes, yes, one sign.
That's where
One sign on the building,
That's what I'm saying.
and then the one,
It could be the one on the side.
pedestal.
Yeah.
Yes,
Like
by the
pedestal.
letter of the ordinance, they'd be allowed 150 square feet of wall sign,
Nice.
one freestanding sign,
Which is the one you showed on there, okay.
one
But,
and one.
but I guess my question is if I have a 1 acre lot, it's the same as if I have a 5 acre lot that has multiple brands that you're selling in it. So I think that's the difference, in my opinion, that he's selling multiple brands.
Yes, they're nearly 600 feet apart and are in a curve, and they are not in the same sight line.
I'll make a motion to approve based on, the hardship of it being a brand. The brand needs you to do that in order to keep it separate, so you can continue to sell the Jeep brand, and that it's a 5.5 acre lot, so it, in my opinion, is larger than a smaller situation. And I don't know how you would want exactly word that, Charlie?
By the time we get a second and move on from there, I'll
I'd
figure
second
something
it.
out.
I'd say.
You second?
All right, Frank is seconded. Do you want her to finesse that, or do you want to vote on it first?
Well, basically, the motion would be to approve, with the hardship being that, by brand requirement, we could be jeopardizing, their ability to sell that brand. Also, this is a very large lot, and it's ridiculous being the same standard as a smaller lot. And that's a hardship that justifies approval of the variance under the factors required by the statute. And hopefully somebody wrote that down, because I was too busy talking.
And I
It
think the
wasn't me.
biggest thing is the sight line. It's, the way it's curved. You know.
Do you want to put is there anything else we need to put in there as far as what the limitation is on the number of signs, though, or?
I think as they have it drafted here is fine. I don't see a problem with it, because I've seen the big rock monuments that have the Jeep brand. They look nice. They're not,
But are we opening up ourselves to them being able to add other?
no, I think you're
No,
only approving.
No,
the
because
Jeep
they've got to come back here, and
Yeah.
then you've got to say,
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, you've blown this one, it's over.
yeah, it's
Okay.
just what's on
Okay.
on the request today.
All right. Do you want to add anything to that, or is it ready for me to vote, Charlie?
I think it's close enough.
Do you want to read it?
Yes. Motion by Amanda, second by Frank. Based on the brand requirement, this being a 5.5 acre lot as opposed to a 1 acre, which would have the same maximum requirements. And the hardship based on the obstacle this could give for the dealership itself, that this satisfies the hardship under the factors presented by KRS 143, whatever it is, 243, I think. I'm sorry, 100, 243. And based on that, the motion is to approve.
And just one other thing, we don't have to mention anything about the interstate sign, do we?
Oh, I'm sorry, good, I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
No,
that's-
I would say let's make part of it, that they
Yeah,
have
that's
waived their
they
right
waived.
to an
That's what I
interstate
was gonna
sign.
say,
Yeah.
right.
So, yes or
Yeah,
no,
I think that's
excellent.
good.
And that
excellent
was
point.
correct, right?
That's correct.
Sir?
Yeah.
And then if you want to just read off that last sentence, I think we'll be okay.
You're really straining this, you know, you understand, don't you?
It's
One
interstate
second.
sign.
Maybe by the third or fourth time I read it, it'll sound better.
You could just read the last sentence if you want on that one, but.
Well, the last part of it would simply be, plus the applicant waives his right to the interstate sign.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, ma'am.
Why are all the signs like different sizes? I see, you know,
On
parts
the
of.
building?
On the building, yeah, because Dan Cummins is smaller than Jeep, and I was
Mm-hmm.
just wondering why the different sizes on the building.
The different square foot, different fonts, and then the Chrysler has a logo on theirs, Dodge doesn't. The Ram comes with a Ram logo, and that has to be calculated in the square footage. You know, I would like ours to be bigger,
That's what
but I think that.
I was kind of thinking that,
But I
that's when I
think
was like.
there's also rules like, hey, your name can't trump the size of our brands that they let us sell, so. Thank you for the hardship, you know, but it's okay.
The brands are very particular about their logo.
Very
I know
particular.
that part, but I was just wondering why his name is the smallest of all of them.
Go ahead, Hol.
Just prior to the vote, if I may, fully understanding the brand's needs to meet the standards on the building facade, I would just like to remind the body that before you vote, as soon as the applicant expresses that he could meet that monument sign requirement for the Jeep by taking that logo off,
Oh, I'm sorry, that needs to be part of it too.
Go ahead. Yep.
yeah, if the applicant
point.
expresses that they can meet that requirement by removing the Jeep from the front of the boulder, then that should be the expectation of the board. And so,
Okay.
if you're agreeable to that, we would like to see that worked into the,
Yes, good
into the
point.
motion.
Very good
Yes,
point.
thank you. Anything else to add?
I guess I have a question about that. Is Jeep actually okay with it? You've already got that permission? Or are you just thinking they might be okay with it? I'm just making sure you don't have to come back.
Right.
I do not have their permission, but their requirement is for us to elevate and display the product on their Jeep mountain. And the image that you saw in that drawing shows black Jeep, the black Jeep letters in front, but really it's just an embossed.
The one that was orange and black?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, that one.
it's more of an embossed JEEP in the front of that fiberglass rock structure. And it's not black. This was my idea in order to try to come up with some way where we could meet in the middle. I guess because I'm a car dealer, I don't know, but get rid of one Jeep sign, which would be an idea, have landscaping, but it is not an approved element. They do not spell it out and say, hey, if you can't, maybe try some landscaping. No, they give us the requirements and we have to meet them. So I would have to work on my end to try and get that approved.
Okay, so what are our options
So,
on
If
on
it's, my preference would be if it's not something that, if you can see that as part of the hardship, it's a requirement for me, it's me having to spend money to be able to sell the brand, then I would prefer to keep it in, to save the time.
I would just say that I don't think saving the time meets the standards of KRS 100.243.
Yeah, I think the thing we need to do is to say, he's removed that
Right.
and leave that to him to figure that out with
Right.
Jeep.
Right,
And
so,
if that isn't worked
That's
out with
another
Jeep,
sign.
then he can in fact come back. We'd love to see him again.
do you want to put in there that it's pending that, or how do you want to word that?
He's agreed, and we are ruling foregoing the logo on the Jeep rock display. Now, if
Okay.
he can't get that approved, then he can come back and ask
Okay,
for
I understand.
modification.
So,
I understand.
the actual monument's still gonna be there, it's just not gonna be logoed, correct?
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Okay.
Because that's another sign, the logo.
Okay.
sign.
So were there an option for them to create one that did not say Jeep on the front, it wouldn't be a problem,
Okay.
Okay.
because it wouldn't be a sign, is that correct?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Or
Thanks
put
for the
some silly putty
clarification.
over it so nobody can read it. We still don't have a problem.
All right, so are you still good with your motion there, Amanda, and Frank seconding it?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
All those in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes as noted. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Okay. And that'll take us to B for the new applications. And I saw some other people file in. If you haven't signed in or been sworn in, and if you're gonna be speaking, make sure you do that. If you're gonna be speaking, okay? Go right ahead.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Mark Carper. I'm pleased to present this application this evening. The application is for a conditional use permit for certification for type 2 home child care. This would be in-home. The address is 120 Blossom Park Drive. The zone is R1C, which is single-family residential. Surrounding zones are multiple, including A1, B5, B2, and R2. The site acreage is a little under an acre. It's Blossom Park Drive. The arterial access is Cherry Blossom Way. We are recommending denial for this application, and I'll go through the reasons why we come to this conclusion or this recommendation. Showing the larger area, this is the zoning map. The parcel itself is outlined in red. You can see the various zoning districts around us. Zooming in a little bit more closely with the aerial, want to make note of this particular imagery in regards to the road itself. It's a curved road. You have this median on the entranceway. It's part of the Cherry Blossom subdivision. Always like the extra comments from the audience. It's
Just make
great.
sure you have your cell phone silenced, please, as best you can, please.
Okay. Yeah, so in regards to this particular road network, I just wanted to highlight some of the features there. You have another road coming in nearly directly across the street from where this particular parcel is. And this comes up in relation to the traffic issues and parking issues. That's why I want to highlight at this particular point.
So conditional use permits are those uses which are essential to or would promote public health, safety, or welfare in one or more zones, but which would impair the integrity and character of the zone in which is located or in adjoining zones unless restrictions on location, size, extent, and character of performance are imposed in addition to those imposed in the zoning regulation. Conditional uses may be permitted in districts as designated under the zoning district regulations, but only when specifically approved by the Board of Adjustment, which is this body here. These permits are subject to, at minimum, yearly review by staff. Conditional use permit is legal authorization to undertake a conditional use issued by the administrative office consisting of two parts: a statement of factual determination by the Board of Adjustments which justifies the issuance of the permit, and a statement of the special conditions which must be met in order for the use to be permitted. Zoning regulations. The zoning ordinance defines type 2 child care facilities as any home or dwelling unit which regularly provides care apart from their parents for 4, but not more than 12 children. The director's own preschool children may be included in the number for which the home is licensed. Section 4.33 of the zoning ordinance lists type 2 licensed daycare facilities as conditional use in the R1C district, which is the applicant parcel itself. This application, if approved, would serve to grant the applicant the requested use at this address. Zoned R1C, the neighborhood of the applicant property is comprised of detached single-family dwellings with a density of 3.52 acres lots per acre, an average lot size of just under 10,000 square feet. The applicant property is near the main entrance from the south into the subdivision, the Cherry Blossom Development, which consists of 92 lots. That entrance is one I showed you in the previous aerial imagery. This entrance includes traffic calming features, which I had also pointed out before, the center median, and the curved street itself. It's a principal transit feeder of the subdivision to services within the city. When this subdivision was approved, 2018, the staff report regarding this particular proposal states that the development would generate approximately 9.53 vehicle trips per dwelling unit per day for a total of approximately 876 average daily trips. That estimate did not include the golf course, which is nearby, which has since been developed as an operation. I would add also that the 2016-2023 traffic collision map and the 2024 comprehensive plan shows the nearby connections with Connector Road and Cherry Blossom Way as one of the areas of highest concentration. Here's some maps showing the location, the larger area. The map on the right shows the areas with the greatest amount of concentrations. The red square sort of symbolizes the neighborhood where this application is being held. So in regards to issues and analysis, for parking for daycare centers, subdivision development regulations state that one space per teacher or employee on the largest shift plus one space per 6 students is required. The applicant stated that the proposed daycare facility provide for a minimum of 10 children. The maximum number of children for type 2 daycare center is 12, so a minimum of 3 parking spaces would be required for this facility if this were to be approved. The existing driveway for the proposed daycare facility may accommodate a maximum of 4 vehicles. 2 of those will be parked near the garage entrance. The other 2 will be parked directly behind them, leaving the 2 next to the garage impeded. Do not have necessarily easy egress from that particular property. If approved, the staff would recommend that 2 spaces at the foot of the drive be restricted to dropping off and picking up only. That you could not have someone parking there more than 5 or 10 minutes for that particular purpose. There is additional street parking directly in front of the house. Could probably fit a maximum of 2 cars along that portion of the property. Here's a street view. The house with the truck in it is the applicant property itself. The strip to the left of that particular driveway is a spot where some street parking might be available. And here's an aerial view of some of the measurements taken for the drive itself and for the width of the road. We have a car parked on the street as some reference. Okay. In regards to staffing, the applicant has not indicated whether additional staff is to be employed at the facility. Kentucky regulations requires certain staff to child ratio, which are put up on this board here. We're unclear of, it's not been made clear what the age of the proposed children, the proposed age would be for the children to be cared for. So it's a bit unclear in terms of whether or not staffing, additional staffing beyond the director would be required. This comes into play in regards to number of parking that might be required. If we consider that only one caregiver is necessary, then you would have a parking space for that person and 2 parking spaces for the kids that would be cared for in that facility. Hours of operations, it's unknown. We have not received that information. The backyard is fenced. There appears to be a 6-foot-tall wooden fence, so it's fully enclosed. The applicant has not provided any information about proposed signage. If some were proposed, it'd have to adhere to the zoning ordinance in that regard. So approval of conditional use permit requires a statement of factual determination by the board which justifies the issuance of the permit. A statement of special conditions must be met in order to be permitted. Section 4.3 of the zoning ordinance states, licensed type 2 daycare facilities are permissible within this district. The applicant stated a minimum of 10 children will be provided care for. A minimum of 3 off-street parking spaces are required. Off-street parking in the applicant property is limited to 2 unimpeded spaces. Additional parking is relegated on-street or temporarily in the drive behind the 2 other spots. The applicant property is positioned along a primary entryway into subdivision estimated to generate in excess of 876 average daily vehicle trips. The age groups of the children to receive care is unknown. It's unknown whether additional staff is required due to staff-to-child ratios, and the applicant has not provided information as to proposed hours of operation. Therefore, staff does recommend denial of the conditional use permit for certification for type 2 in-home child care at 120 Blossom Park Drive. Should the board approve this application, staff recommends including the following conditions. They are the property is subject to requirements of the Georgetown-Scott County zoning ordinance, subdivision and development regulations. The applicant shall comply with all requirements of other federal, state, and local regulatory entities and shall provide copies to the Board of Adjustments of all permits on behalf of the applicant as a result of the approval, including but not limited to business-related certifications, licenses, regulatory permits, and any recertification when required. The conditional use permit is subject to annual review by the Board of Adjustments and/or staff and is non-transferable. During the hours of operation, 2 parking spaces at the foot of the driveway shall be restricted to temporary parking for the purpose of dropping off and picking up. The applicant may, trailed off there, beg your pardon. The applicant shall specify the hours of operation, the age cohort of the children to be cared for, and whether additional staff is to be required. Any proposed new signage must meet the requirements of the City of Georgetown site ordinance. The applicant shall return to the board prior to any changes in the approved conditions or new uses. And lastly, the conditional use permit shall become null and void upon the transfer, ownership, or sale of the project site. Thank you very much, and I'm open for any questions you may have.
Yeah, good information, thank you. On the last slide, with the 10, did they indicate if that was including their own? I know you'd mentioned something about that.
There was no indication.
No indication,
Yeah.
okay. Any other questions for staff? Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
I'm the one that's trying to get the license. I don't actually need a license to childcare.
Did you
I signed in.
signed in? Did you
I
swear
did.
in
Yes,
as well?
I
Okay.
did.
And just state your name again.
Serena Alfaro.
Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
I'm trying to do certified in child daycare. I babysit children, and for CCAP to be able to pay me to take care of the children, I have to get like certified through the county. A lot of families are having a hard time paying for childcare themselves. As myself, I pay like $275 a week. Some of the families that I take care of, they have CCAP and they don't have money to pay out of pocket. So before I can accept that, I have to come and ask for approval to do in-home certification, not technically a license, just so I can get approval for the government to be able to pay. And I will have to get yearly inspections. I will have to make sure I have an emergency plan. I will have to make sure everything is up to date. It would be only myself taking care of the children from probably 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. There will not be a lot of traffic going in and out. As I said, like I babysit now, and there's not traffic that goes in and out right now.
And
People drop off at different times. I care for 5 kids, including my own. I have a 2-year-old.
so it's 6 total?
No, including my own is 5,
Including
including
your
my
own's
own, a
5.
2-year-old. They're toddlers, they're inside, they're not in the front. We do go outside playtime, but we go out the back. It's living situations, so we have my living room, my kitchen, and a playroom. It's nothing like a daycare setting. I do have it set up, so when they come in to inspect, they will see like a board with, where you can go out, for like, I guess, fire, like if there's an emergency, the exits that they can go out of, the space. I have to do CPR, first aid, like everything by the book. But my first goal is to come here to ask you all for permission first, to be able to take care of children in my home.
What are the age ranges of the 6?
Between
Or
24 and
for the
36
sorry.
months.
Between 24 and 36 months?
Yes, they're 2 to 3 years old.
And would you only always have 5 or under? Not,
Yes.
you would never pick up any additional children?
No, they tell me by state law I can do 10 per adult, but I feel like that's too many for myself with so many toddlers, so I would not go,
More than 5?
yeah, I would not go more than 5.
If I may.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you very much. If the applicant is wishing to give additional information on superintendent here, apply to application or permit in a formal sense, we would like to advise or consider that to be postponed. She may present that information as a formal part of the application, if that's something that the applicant would be interested in doing. This information we hadn't received in the
Okay.
application before, so if you're open to that, it's something we'd be willing to entertain.
Yeah, of course, if you need additional information, then, I mean, I'm, a little anxious about it too. I would I think we would like those.
There will not be no signage
Percentage,
or
yeah.
anything, I'm just doing childcare inside of my home, that's basically it. I just need approval, so the parents that's not able to afford it, they have CCAP, and I will be able to accept it. There's waiting lists for like 2 years for childcare in Georgetown.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, yeah, I agree. I do think there's some holes here that we'd, like to have, answered, and if you wanna do that for a reapplication, I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, I think, and I understand the situation, but we really need to get information
for sure.
ahead of time. We
Yeah.
don't, we really can't get at the time.
Right, right.
And do a good job of either reviewing it or advising or anything else. So, yeah, if, based upon this, reconsider and then come back. I think that's
I
gotta be the way to-
apologize, I
It's
thought when
okay,
I did
it's
my
okay.
application with them, I explained myself, but I get nervous when I talk to people, as you can see, so I probably didn't explain myself very well.
Yeah, it's okay, you're doing fine, and yes, I think getting those things answered and going back to the drawing board on that would be good. Do we need to make a motion for that specifically? Yes,
I'd like to speak.
okay.
There are several of us that want to speak.
Well,
Do
if
you
it,
make a motion or what?
well, if it gets postponed, you would have to come back. I don't think that we could, when we do postponements, we typically can't have, we don't have anybody speak on that. We have to wait until it gets reapplied for. It's usually out of turn if we do it that way. I apologize.
And we will get notified, right, again, of this if it comes to board, back on the.
Yeah.
Would we re-notify or just simply continue it to next month with you all?
Up to the body on how they want to proceed with that.
I mean, because re-notification and all that, I mean, that's a lot of extra work, that's a lot of of
Maybe
extra
we say
expense.
next month,
Just
would that
next
be
month.
fair?
Well,
Can you have the
And I,
motion?
I'm sorry, I do live in HOA, and I did have a meeting with the president and the vice president, and
Okay.
they was okay with it. They told me they were gonna have a meeting with, I think, 2 or 3 other people and get back with me
is,
about it.
who here's wanting to speak on this? So we just have two?
Three.
Three? So, what do you all think?
If we're gonna postpone it
Go
until
ahead.
next time, we shouldn't hear.
Is there, we, do
Yeah,
you
I
all feel like
agree.
we need to postpone it for additional
Yeah.
information?
I think,
Before consideration, again, staff's recommendation as it stands is denial. If with the new information and with the questions that have been brought up, it may be wise to postpone before final determination.
yeah, I agree.
Let's just do it until next month, so that way you don't have to re-notify. We'll just tell everybody now it's gonna be next month. Is
Yeah.
that fair?
Yes, and yes, just make, make sure whoever is wanting to speak on that, that you have, the date of the next meeting and, contact planning and zoning if you have any questions to make sure you're here.
Is it always the first Monday of the month?
Yes, barring any holidays or, if we don't have quorum would be the only things that would affect that, but yes.
I will say for the record, the meeting in August is scheduled for August 4th.
Fourth.
So in that action for postponement, staff recommends that you say we're gonna postpone it to the next scheduled meeting. which is
Sure.
Scheduled for August
Yeah, I
4th
agree.
at 5:30. So.
Okay, so we do need to make a motion on that specifically. Does anybody like to do that?
I'll do it.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to postpone this portion to the next meeting on August 4th.
A
Correct.
second?
Seconded by Frank. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
you're very welcome. Thank you. Moving on to C for new application.
All right, before we kind of get rocking and rolling, I do have an addendum to the staff report. If it is the board's discretion, if they'd like to request for 5 minutes to review the addendum to the staff report.
Sure.
You're more than welcome to, since we could later add that we had to consider it.
For this application, and it's not,
This
in
is for this specific.
and it's not in our packet?
It is not in the packet.
Okay.
There's additional information that was,
Yes, we'll take no more than 5 minutes to review the addendum. If anybody needs to have a drink or use the restroom, that'll be a good time.
would you say,
Oh, I'm sorry.
like a time for it, roughly 5:40 or?
No,
6:40, or do you think?
We'll do exactly fine. We'll do 6:38.
6:38.
They want me to get going on this, We'll start back at 6:38 precisely. Can we turn these off then? All right, you can turn them off.
static. All right, where we at here?
Well, it would be right here, but make sure you have this on top of it. Essentially. You ready, Elise? Okay, we'll get started with new application C. And again, just make sure your cell phones are silenced. If there's anybody who's speaking, make sure you're signed in and you've swore in with Mr. Perkins, and that's it. Go ahead, Elise.
Okay, thank you, board chairman and everybody else. This is application G-2025-13, a conditional use permit for a professional office to operate a wellness spa and business with clients and staff on the property located at 500 Estill Court. It is an R2 zone property, which is their medium density residential zone, surrounded by R2 uses, or R2 zones. The lot measures 0.45 acres, or approximately 19,000 square feet, with direct access onto Estill Court, and that connects to either East Jackson or Clayton to South Broadway and other kind of parts of Georgetown. It's in rather close proximity to the city's, to Georgetown College on the east, or on the east of the property. The applicant has requested all these things, and staff does recommend approval of the request accordingly. This is the property here. Unfortunately, this map does not show the street names, but the dark street traveling from north to south is Estill Court. Approximately at the midpoint of the slide is Farnham Avenue. There's no property's address off of Farnham, but it is a public road. If you are moving further to the left, that is South Hamilton. If you are going to the north, that is East College. So this is in an old building in an R2 zone. This is our zoning map surrounding. The large parcel on the west side of South Hamilton is Garth Elementary. As Mark stated in the previous application, conditional uses are those which are central to or would promote the public health, safety, welfare in one or more zones, but which would impair the integrity of the character of the zone in which it is located or in the adjoining zones unless restrictions can be placed on the location, size, extent, and character of performance, and those are imposed in the zoning regulation. They can be, well, basically it's something that could work in an area, but it's kind of circumstantial, and that's what makes it a conditional use permit, where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It may be, conditional uses may only be permitted in zones in which it is designated under the zoning district regulations and only when approved by the Board of Adjustment, which is why we're here today. They are subject to a minimum yearly review by staff to ensure compliance with their conditions and that we're not seeing any unforeseen expansion, or if the business has ceased operating at the location, just keeping an eye on it to make sure things are still kind of continuing if it is approved as it was approved. As part of a conditional use permit, this is the definition of that permit. It is a legal authorization to undertake a conditional use issued by the administrative official, which would be the Board of Adjustment in our office, pursuant to authorization by the Board of Adjustment consisting of two parts: a statement of the factual determination by the Board of Adjustment which justifies the issuance of the permit, and a statement of special conditions which must be met in order for the use to be permitted at the location at which it is requested. Section 4.32 of the zoning ordinance lists professional offices as a conditional use in the R2 zone with expectations and standards that the proposed use would consist of low traffic, office uses, providing services rather than sales or production, which would require deliveries, inventories, or vehicles other than automobiles. So those kind of three larger things where it's a lot of deliveries, a lot of inventories, a lot of vehicles, those ones are kind of less of a professional office, more of a go somewhere else zone. And then an automobile primarily based service, which is providing that services, those are what professional office means by that definition. To satisfy the requirement of low traffic, an office must have limited staff, including professionals, and a limited number of clients during the course of an average workday. The Board of Adjustment will require any reasonable documentation demonstrating the absence of moderate to heavy traffic. And staff has determined after reviewing the requests of the applicant and our regulations as a whole, that the wellness spa with the business and professional office operations fits the category as defined by the ordinance accordingly. So we have several slides about just kind of the generalized detail of the property and what the proposal is of the business. Outside of the owners, which there's the kind of principal owner and kind of a co-partner, there are 4 additional staff that would be working on the property. They are part-time and working only really on the property when a client is with them. So if there's not a client there, but the business is open, that doesn't mean that every single staff member is there at any given time. The business is an appointment-only business with no option for walk-ins. The maximum number of clients per 1 day of office or business operation, and this is the maximum, is 25. We always ask for this of our use permits to understand what is the peak we should expect, even if the peak is like a very rare, random, once-in-a-blue moon event, and other times you're seeing about 10. We want to make sure that we can anticipate the worst-case scenario, in some instances, the best-case scenario for business, to make sure that when we're going forward, we're always aware that might be a little bit less, probably will be a little bit less, but it won't be any more. The maximum number of clients at any given point would be 4, so 1 staff member to 1 client. And client appointments range from 15 minutes to an hour, with an average turnover of a client being about 45 minutes. While there are some medical functions to it, the types of services and procedures provided on the property are not what you would typically see of a business or of a traditional medical office where you're receiving a lot of intensive intervention care. It's more so kind of that smaller medical procedural item, and are comparatively minor when reviewed against a traditional medical or dentist use. The operating hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturday, with no operations on a Sunday. While they do correspond with some school times, I understand that Scott County has some staggered school start times, so you'd be seeing buses in a range of time in the morning and in the afternoon. The applicant has stated that the office and business is not open when the large majority of the buses are going to be running, and that they see the least activity in that time period when school buses are starting to let out for children returning home, elementary school, middle school, high school traffic. Those types of things are when they tend to see the least activity on the property. The delivery schedule is 1 to 2 times a month, and they would have waste management that would follow the weekly system. So waste management, think just like paper towels, general kind of household waste, with the medical waste being handled separately in accordance with all other regulations, and would be managed on a quarterly basis. If this was approved, there are conditions that state that they need to adhere to all of the regulations outside of our office, so local, state, federal regulations, and that does apply to medical waste. That applies to any procedural things going on. They have all their licenses in order, so that they are required to, if this was approved for the extent of the operation, that they meet all of those requirements set by other agencies. We don't do medical waste in our office, we do land use management, so we trust that they can enforce their things and we do our things. The applicant has stated that there would be several improvements to the structure on the property, but those would be interior to the property, instead preferring to keep that exterior retained as much as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes when buildings are rather old, there may be some exterior improvements that are required, but the applicant has stated that it is their intent to have limited impact on the exterior of the building, and only in instances where it is necessary for the safe residence or safe use of the property. They can speak more to the condition of the property as board feels needed, and they do have a PowerPoint that can kind of talk more about their plans for the building and their plans for their business. Staff recommends conditioning that any rehabilitation of the structure, specifically the interior of the structure, be done in such a way that the structure could be reverted to residential use upon the cessation of the conditional use permit. We understand that this has been a longstanding residential use, taking on some alternative housing options such as potentially sororities, according to our attorney and the college, and also traditional single-family, one-family residential uses. It is our interest to, is the staff recommendation to continue that goal of having this be a residential use and this kind of a one-time improvement change to the property use permit. Conditional use permits, as I've kind of stated previously, it's for one user for their specific request. And if something were to happen and they left, or a different user was interested and they kind of sublet out, we would need updated conditional use permits for that user before we would see operation on the property. These are very specific regulations and very specific permits for one person, one use, at one extent, and does not allow for activities in excess or an alternative to what has been already approved, besides what's a by right use, which in this instance would be single-family residential uses and all other uses allowed by the R2 zone as a by right purpose. The applicant states that the clients and staff would be directed to park on the property. I have an image looking north or west to the top, the arrow showing the driveway entrance onto Estill, and you can kind of see that rear yard space. The subdivision regulations outline requirements for off-street parking by use. In this instance, there are kind of two mechanisms you could use. You could use the typical office use, or you could use the medical office use. Regardless of which one was chosen, both are appropriate. Staff would be checking for compliance to make sure that the appropriate amount of parking space is allocated to keep users off the street and on the site. So we are understanding that sometimes things get really busy. The parking metrics that we have are rather large to ensure that users, if there's a busy time where they have 25 people a day and 4 clients in an hour for a majority of the hours during the day and 4 people on staff that are there, and there's now 8 cars on the property with some turnover, obviously, the lot can handle that amount of people on the property without having any overflow parking being directed to the street. We understand that this road is a slightly narrower road with a lot of activity, and there's a lot of residential parking on this road due to size of driveways, just number of people that live off the road. I'll speak to that in a moment, but it is staff's intent to keep the road parking for the people that need the road parking, and if they can accommodate the parking on the property for their use, they accommodate the parking on the use. So staff concludes that there is sufficient space to meet all of the requirements for parking screening and all engineering requirements when installing a parking lot on the property. And we will be, if this would be approved, staff would recommend that a condition be applied that would say that a development plan be submitted for our review to ensure compliance with our regulations regarding parking and everything else that I just mentioned. This is a graphic or a drawing that was submitted by the applicant, and I've kind of identified 5 areas where they're going to be making some external improvements to the lot itself, not the exterior of the structure. They intend to improve the driveway, parking lot, and some concrete pavers. They propose putting the parking lot behind the structure. The dimensions are kind of up in the air. We will be checking for compliance and the appropriate ratios of parking in areas and aisles. They would be removing or replacing an existing rear porch as part of the project, removing an accessory building to make space for all necessary parking, and then potentially removing some plantings around the porch as necessary. I can have them kind of speak more to their plans for landscaping in their due time. So this is kind of just showing their graphic here. They also do request signage as part of the application, which is what the addendum was. Thank you for the 5 minutes so that you guys can kind of review it. I guess thank yourselves for that one, but, so they have requested signage as part of this request. At the time, it was a little bit up in the air, so we got some information a little bit later than anticipated. Processing was a little bit slowed, but they have submitted requests subsequent to this. And as part of that request, they would like to do something similar to what we see at the Cleveland Animal Clinic on South Broadway, about that height, about that style, with the limited kind of distraction to it, not a lot of activity to it. They're requesting the standards allowed for by home occupations, which find hardship with the wall signage requirement. So if your home occupation, you can be approved with a wall sign up to, I think, 5 square feet in sign area. And they are requesting to use the alternative one, which is when you can demonstrate hardship, you can, I'm gonna say unlock. Unlock is the inappropriate word in this instance, but they can potentially petition to utilize the freestanding request as stated in this slide here. The sign location would be 12 feet from Estill Court pavement, so that very edge of pavement where the kind of curb starts, it would be 12 feet back from that location. And again, as I stated, it would be similar to the one seen at the Cleveland Animal Clinic, which I did pull up for general kind of reference of what they'd expressed interest in the sign style being. I've included this graphic here. I went out to the property this morning and was taking some photos. So roughly if you were driving southbound on the property, you would be, or southbound on Estill, that pink box would roughly be about the location where the sign would be on the property. There is a grade change for the property, so there's that retaining wall which you can see, and then you can see the additional soil on top. And so from the edge of pavement to the grade where the building starts is about, my estimate was 3 to 4 feet. The applicant states it's closer to 6 feet. I think it just really depends on the location and everything like that. As you can see, kind of it does have that rounding. And so they've stated that having that wall signage requirement to identify the business would set the wall sign so far back that it would be really ineffective as a sign to identify the business, which could be unsafe for drivers trying to find out something and they're having to slow down and not understanding where the use is. And staff is amenable to that request, so if this was to be approved, staff would recommend in favor of the requested location for their sign, as stated in the addendum. Getting in my staff review now. So Estill Court is a 24-foot wide road with street parking on the east side of the road. Staff calculated and went out and did some counting and identified that there were 20 driveways accessing Estill Court directly. If you consider the most recent accepted trip generator, which is the international, it is the ITE 11th edition for trip generation. That is the number of trips that we would be seeing. So 20 driveways, all being served or serving single-family residential structures that are detached, are anticipated to generate 14 AM trips per 1 hour and 18.8 PM trips per 1 hour, with an average trips generated by those 20 residential driveways of 188 average daily trips. If the maximum, this is why we asked for the maximum, if the maximum number of clients per day and the maximum number of staff were located on the property, on average you would see 6.2 trips per hour or 62 average daily trips. It is essential to understand that when you're counting trips, it is an in and an out. So if you leave, that's a trip. If you come back, that's also a trip. And so it is 31 trips coming to, and then 31 trips leaving. And so that's where we're seeing that value come from. That's 31, which is the sum of 25 and 6, one way in, one way out. We understand that the school is to the west of the property and that at times South Hamilton does close. That is something outside of our control. That is a school decision, and that individuals may be incentivized to use Estill Court during that time. They also are incentivized to use South Broadway. So there are options to kind of direct that. But I have had several emails with concerns that during school hours, Estill's traffic does increase. The applicant has stated that their operating hours in the morning are after the school would be kind of having its typical busiest hours of drop-off for buses and personal vehicles with their children, as well as while they would be open. The applicant has stated that it is a rather dry spell time for them where they would be seeing less activity, less appointments. Of course, I'm gonna let them attest for that one, but just something to be considered as part of that request. This is just a view of the property when you're kind of standing at the driveway looking north. You can see kind of the width and visibility, as well as when you're at the property to the south and the width and visibility here. So there, thankfully, were some cars on the road, so we could kind of understand what it looks like when there are vehicles parked on the driveway or on the road using that on-street parking. Staff analysis is kind of listed here. There would be anticipated increase in activity on the property with a business on the property or within a professional office on the property. Any habitation or any use of any building will see an increase in the operations or increase in activity on the property. People drive home, people drive in, people are always kind of engaging with the property. So traditional workday hours kind of keeps to the consistent hours that we see for everybody else, trying to not have anything atypically early or atypically late. They have some limited Saturday operations, which would be in a time window which is when most people are up and moving around doing errands and everything like that, which is not anticipated to negatively impact the surrounding area. And it would be closed on Sundays. So the Sundays when everyone is kind of resting, going to church, those types of things, you would be seeing no activity on the property. The business is expected to generate 6.2 trips per hour on the busiest weekday that they had, of course, adjusting accordingly as the demand or anything decreases over time. Staff also reviewed and determined that there is sufficient space for on-street parking, or on-site parking, not on-street parking. On-site, off-street parking has the space on the property and the screening required as part of that. I can go into more detail about the screening if it comes up to it. I do have a little graphic showing that with some mock-ups on potential lot layouts. It's my graphic, it's not theirs, so just something to be aware of. Improvements are proposed, and staff believes that concludes that the exterior should be protected as much as possible. This is a incredibly old building that a lot of people have expressed interest in protecting, and staff is in agreement of that. Where we can protect historic buildings, we'd like to continue to protect historic buildings. It aligns with our comp plan, it aligns with community interests. And so we would like to see that going forward, and the applicant has stated that they would be, to the best of their abilities, keeping the exterior as protected as they could keep it. This is just my little mock-up here, not theirs, just mine. The blue along the boundaries with the little kind of orange dots, yellow dots, is the required buffering for all of the vehicle use areas, and the trees is a rough approximation in frequency that you would see tree installations. For specifics, the VUA perimeter landscaping requirements are a 3 to 5 foot wide buffer with a 3 foot tall fence, hedge, wall, earth mound, and a tree every 40 feet. And so you would be seeing that kind of buffer that would, and is anticipated to eliminate that vehicle headlights, the vehicle engine noise, and just the general activity where a lot of the noise from a car is coming from, that would be kind of diffused by having that buffering installed in those locations. And if this were to be approved, staff would recommend that that would be a condition of approval. Staff has several findings, the first of which is discussing the existing conditions of the property. The second is discussing that a professional office is a conditional use in the R2 zone. The third is detailing the hours of operations and that the staff count and number of clients per day would increase the activity but would not anticipate it to significantly disrupt community character. Item 4 discusses the improvements to the interior of the structure, but does not, and that the applicant was not anticipating on impacting the exterior as best as possible, and that any driveways, parking areas would be expected to meet our regulations. The 5th item would be our regulations. Item 6 is regarding protecting the exterior of the building and requiring a development plan to protect the character of the building. Item 7 is that the use permit is found to be a positive contribution to the public health, safety, welfare, and that it would not negatively impact the character of the general vicinity when conditions of approval are applied. So the condition being the number of clients at a maximum time, the number of staff, the hours of operation, those types of things can be an essential mechanism to ensure that the negative impacts or anything, that the positives can be retained and it would not detract from the neighborhood surrounding. Item 8 talks about the sign ordinance requirements and where limited signage is approvable in residential zones. This 8th one talks about the non-conforming structure, being that it predates zoning regulations and it's grade above everything, and that strict adherence to regulations and siting would result in a sign that would not be visible to clients and staff coming to the project site, and that the variation to the signage type and location would also not negatively impact public health, safety, welfare, nor impact the character of the general vicinity. As such, staff recommends in favor of the conditional use permit, subject to several pages of conditions. The first five are traditional five, so our regs, everyone else's regs, get a building permit, come to us before any changes to business operations are commenced, and that it would become null and void upon transfer or sale of the property. Items 6 states that they would adhere to the number of the hours of operation and the volume of clientele. 7 is regarding the signage. 8 is regarding the development plan. 9 is requiring requiring that the applicant direct staff, clients, and owners to park off-street, so on-site, and that the parking lot and driveway be constructed pursuant to our regulations regarding safe construction. Item 10 is saying that they need to get a landscape plan as part of their development plan. Item 11 is saying that they would rehab the interior in such a way that the structure could be reverted back to residential use upon cessation of the use permit. Item 12 is that they have no major modification to the historic facade in the interest of retaining that historic feature. The additional conditions from the addendum are items 13 and 14 regarding getting a sign permit, and that the sign not exceed 4 feet in height, nor 42 feet in area, nor be closer to the road than 12 feet to the edge of pavement of Estill Court. Okay.
Great job.
Anyway, so, all in all, though, staff does recommend in favor of it. Staff made several findings that the use would be of benefit to the area and that it could be mitigated with appropriate processes, procedures, and regulations. Are there any questions?
Am I correct in saying that Farnham and Estill are both two-way streets with one side parking available? Is that it?
I believe, as stated, that the width of Farnham does not allow for two-way traffic on it. I am not entirely certain if it is going towards Estill Court one way or going towards Hamilton
It's
one
one
way.
way toward.
Towards South Hamilton,
No,
towards
Toward Estill.
Estill.
toward Estill.
And is there parking on that one?
I do not believe there is. I believe
Okay.
its width is insufficient to allow for on-street parking.
Okay.
Are you saying no parking on Farnham? There
Is
is
that the
parking on-
case? Oh, there is?
There is parking on
Yeah.
Estill, I know
Yeah,
that, but.
yeah.
So
There
Farnham
is
it is then,
There is on
as well.
one side, I think, only.
Oh, there is
Okay.
parking on Farnham one side?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
I
all,
stand
that's all I
corrected.
had.
I didn't pick
You
that
guys
one
have
up.
any questions for staff? Do you want the applicant to speak next as
I
next
believe it
best?
is oftentimes,
Yeah.
this is at obviously the board's discretion, that the applicant would speak after
Yeah.
staff, but if that is not your interest,
No,
you're more
I
than
think-
welcome not to. They do have a presentation, so I'm
Sure.
gonna give them this and go from
Absolutely,
there.
thank you. Great job.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of
All
the
right.
board. My name is Wes Harned. I have the honor of representing Jasmine Wheeler and Era Wellness Spa. I'm gonna try to keep my comments brief and just open with kind of an overview of the application to hit a couple of high notes, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Wheeler, who is gonna take you through her plan and her proposed use of the building and the structure there in the property. And I think you will see that there are a lot of pages of conditions, most of which were her plan. And you will see that it's her plan to rehabilitate and restore the exterior of the building to keep it, to keep the historic nature of it, and to do the same on the inside. But she'll hit on those things. And then after that, we're gonna have John Parton come up and talk to you. He's with Thoroughbred Traffic Design, and he's done a traffic study in this area that will, I think, amplify a little bit of what the staff did themselves, and I think that will be useful for the board's consideration as we move forward. But I wanted to start with something general that you ladies and gentlemen already know, which is the question here is not whether it's a good idea for a professional office to be a conditional use in this area. The zoning ordinance already says that it can be. And the question then is, would the proposed use promote the public health, safety, and welfare in one or more zones. And as a wellness spa, and as Ms. Wheeler will tell you, the answer to that question is yes. And then the next question is, would the proposed use impair the integrity and character of the neighborhood and the zone in which it is located? And if so, are there any conditions that can be implemented to address that? And I will submit to you on that second question that the proposed use will not impair the integrity and character of the neighborhood. In fact, I think what you will see when Ms. Wheeler takes you through her proposed use of the property is that her plan is to in fact restore and enhance this structure on the property that has gone unused for a number of years. Used to be, I think, a sorority house at some point back, as late as the 70s is my understanding. But her plan is to restore that property, or at least the facade of it, and to add back to enhance the character of the neighborhood. The interior of the building, you will hear, is in need of a lot of repair, and they plan to do that. They plan to rehabilitate the inside, renovate it to the best of their ability back to something that pays tribute to the historic nature of the house, and to keep it so that if it were to ever go back to residential use, it can be used in that way. And so, again, it's a condition the staff has recommended, but it's her plan already. The third thing that I think is important and shows that this will not impair the integrity or character of the neighborhood is they're going to do everything in their power to direct parking off the street, on site. You've seen the diagrams of where they're proposing to park cars. They don't want to use on-street parking. They want to direct parking back behind the structure, and their plan is to screen that to the best of their ability with fencing or landscaping, whatever the board deems appropriate, but to screen that parking so that when you're driving on Estill past this structure, you don't see a parking lot in the back, but you also don't have to navigate the vehicles parked on the street that would be there otherwise, whether this is a professional office with low traffic impact or multifamily or a residence. And so their plan is to move all that parking off the street. And lastly, in kind of sticking with the cars, it is going to be a very low impact, you will hear, I think you've already heard from the staff, relative to a professional office use. And you will hear Mr. Parton address some of the traffic numbers in a few minutes, but I wanted to hit on the staff's numbers. The staff has calculated that this proposed use will result in 6.2 trips per hour. That's one trip every 10 minutes. This is not going to be a flood of cars onto Estill in both directions, and certainly not during school times. We've heard that the applicant will amplify that. But it's not going to be a flood of traffic. It's at most, it's one every 10 minutes. And I think the staff even told you they try to hit the maximum. It's probably most likely going to be less than one every 10 minutes. And so I'd ask the board to keep that in mind as you go through and you hear concerns, and they should be considered, but the traffic impact will be low, and that is what the zoning ordinance talks about when it addresses professional office as a conditional use in this zone. And that is exactly what this will be. And again, the zoning ordinance already identifies a low traffic impact professional office use as something that can be a conditional use. So that's not the question. The question really comes down to, is there going to be an impairment of the integrity or character of the neighborhood? You'll hear in just a few minutes that the proposed use is not going to result in that. And I think the biggest issue, kind of in a vacuum, might be traffic, and what you will hear is that will not be a moderate or heavy traffic impact. On the addendum, on the sign, one thing, and I think there's very likely going to be some more discussion about that, We heard in the first application tonight for the variance that it comes down to hardship, and hardship was hit on a little bit by the legal nonconforming nature of the building setback in this one, where an on the wall sign would be difficult for customers to see as they're coming up on the property. I would submit to the board that that's not only a hardship for the property itself, it's a hardship that can be avoided with a standalone sign. It's a hardship for the neighborhood and for the people traveling on that road, because if you have cars slowing down to try to find where they're going, right, that's going to slow traffic up. I could also imagine they would try to use that standalone sign to direct traffic, to direct their parking off-road, off to the back of the building. And so in that way, you would mitigate, I think, a hardship to the traffic situation that's probably going to be front and center for us by allowing the standalone sign, in addition to the hardship of it's going to be very difficult to visualize that sign when it's on the building. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wheeler to let her go through her vision and her proposed use of this property. And I thank you in advance for the time that you'll give this application.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
All good?
My name is Jasmine Wheeler, and I am requesting a conditional use permit for my small business, Air Wellness Spa, to operate out of 500 Estill Court. So, Air Wellness Spa came about over 6 years ago and has been operating in the Georgetown Historic District since January of 2020. We provide professional services and treatments to our clients, including facials, anti-aging injectables, laser therapies, microneedling, IV infusions, chemical peels, and hormone therapy. The proposed use will promote the public health, safety, and welfare in this zone. Our thriving weight loss patients lose collectively around 500 pounds per month, decreasing their mortality and helping them come off of their blood pressure and diabetes medications. Our wellness therapies also provide alternative treatments for people with cancer, autoimmune, and other disorders. With the profit, we always give back by sponsoring a range of local nonprofits, as you see on that list, or donating to those in need within the community that helps us thrive. My proposed use will not impair the integrity and character of the area. This is because of low traffic, off-street on-site parking, a 4-sided parking lot screen, and hours of operation typical of an average workday. Speaking on my first point of low traffic, according to Article 4, I believe Section 4.35 of the Georgetown-Scott County zoning ordinance, the requirement of low traffic is satisfied with 2 points. An office must have limited staff, including the professionals, and number 2, a limited number of clients during the course of an average workday. So I'm going to break that down in regard to my business. So limited staff, who's here tonight, includes Brittany. She's our nurse practitioner. She works 4 days per week and is in her second year with us. There's Candace, our licensed esthetician, who works 3 days per week and also in her second year. Bria is our paramedic, who works 1 to 2 days per week and in her first year. And then Ashley, the front office coordinator, who works 4 days per week and in her third year. We also have a limited number of clients during the course of an average workday, satisfying the requirement of low traffic. This is evidenced by approximately 22.8 clients per day and around 2.8 per hour. Hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays, closed Sundays and major holidays with no walk-in availability, as well as services because of services being appointment only. Appointments range from 15 minutes to 2+ hours with an average of 45 minutes per appointment. As far as economic pollution, our biohazard material is discarded properly and disposed of by a biohazard company. There's no noise pollutions as all services are indoor and naturally quiet. An extended driveway and lot will not be gravel. Lighting will be consistent with residential character with lot and pathways shielded by screens and 0 outdoor odor pollutions as indoor services don't have aroma to it. So Esselhurst, as it was formerly named, is a special piece of history in Georgetown, being only 10 years younger than Ward Hall. However, its current condition is much different due to the amount of extensive black mold throughout the first floor and basement, the extensive termite damage, and the inability to utilize current utilities without hazards and major leaks. Renovations will be completed through Elaine Allen with their senior project manager, Darius McCoy, in charge of this project. Priority will go to safety and historic preservation, with interior emphasis on resale back to residential in the future, including adding rough-ins for kitchen appliances and bathroom showers and tubs. Exterior renovations to the rear will include a 2-lane driveway extension to the lot with approximately 9 client parking spaces along the back, 5 employee parking spaces along the right rear, and 3 extra parking spots, including a handicap along the left rear edge of the building, for a total of 17 spots. The sheds will be removed and the basement door will be replaced. Stepping stones will be added for a pathway to the front door. The deck will be replaced for the employee entrance with a short picket fence added in front of the deck for separation from the lot. As far as screening, I spoke with the Kearnses, whose lot backs up to along the back end of my lot, and they requested a fence instead of landscape screening. So the current fence that I have along the right edge will be extended along the rear of the property. Exterior renovations to the front will be minimal, including repair of the steps, updating landscaping for aesthetic appeal, safe removal of wildlife, including raccoons and bees, repair and replacement of the gutter system, and lot screening to the left side, since the current fence already screens the right side. Wall sign is a major hardship for this property. The photo taken over to the right is taken from a driver's side of a vehicle. The front of the building is approximately 6 feet in elevation from the ground. The face of the property is also rather large compared to others within the zone. It would be close to impossible for drivers to see wall signage, therefore one freestanding ground sign is requested. This will increase visibility of the site for clients to locate. There will be 0 illumination, and sign will not exceed 42 inches in height and 4 square feet in area. So our clients rely on our emails and social media for our latest news and updates. With the amount of time it will take to renovate, we will have at least a half a year to update clients regularly on the move, including maps, directions on how to access the property, reminders to respect the residential character, and where to park for appointments. As owners, we will respect the property and neighbors and comply with all conditions set forth within the conditional use permit. We will always have a friendly open door policy and welcome input from neighbors on anything we may improve on. And if any issues arise that can't be resolved, we will gladly return to the Board of Adjustment for additional improvements to our conditional use permit. Why this location? As a small business owner in the town I grew up in, my next step to live in the American dream is to own the property my business operates out of. I've looked diligently since late last year for a location that could make that happen. 500 Estill Court allows me to keep my business in Georgetown, as small business property for sale is scarce in this town. In fact, this location is only a half a mile from my current leased property with multiple access roads with traffic lights to an arterial road. The historic nature of the property fits our image I've built over the last 5 years in the 100-year-old building I've operated out of on North Broadway. It's also large enough and the layout is consistent for the needs of my operation. So what you can expect if this conditional use permit gets approved is a piece of Georgetown's history getting brought back to life and saved from possibly being condemned or worse, torn down. You'll find there is a clean and quiet business that doesn't start until 9, done by 6 on weekdays, out by 2 on Saturdays, and is completely empty and quiet on Sundays and major holidays. You'll see this business operate with a low volume of traffic without interference with local school traffic, as it doesn't open until much later after school opens and has a dead period during the time school lets out. And you'll find a well-established and highly reputable family of Georgetown respecting their neighbors. And then I have my traffic expert, John Parton, here.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, I'm just going to kind of lead him through with some questions to get it into the record, get his testimony into the record, if that's all
Okay.
right. And we've got a handout, Mr. Parton, if you'll step up. Sir, if you'll state your name for the record.
Jonathan Parton.
Sir, how are you employed?
I am the owner and operator of Thoroughbred Traffic Design.
Okay, and in that role, do you have experience conducting traffic studies and traffic impact analyses?
I do. I work closely with our local KYTC districts, and I do those under the guise of providing traffic plans and things of that sort for all our major utilities, KU, Columbia Gas, all of the above.
And did you do so in connection with the proposed use of 500 Estill Court at issue in this conditional use permit application?
Yes.
Okay, and please share, well, first of all, I'm going to hand you a document titled Supporting Document Estill Court Traffic Flow Analysis. Did you prepare that?
I did.
Okay, and I'm going to hand out copies, and when I do, can you please share with the board your findings with respect to traffic impact from the proposed use? I have one for the record, Mr. Parks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm going to set some up here.
So to assess the potential impact of the med spa business on Estill Court's traffic flow, I analyzed the existing traffic patterns, not only of being a resident here for 43 years, but have already doing one for the gas line replacement that had taken place on Estill. So roughly, if we look at how things stand, assuming that there are roughly 18 to 20 households on there, 2 vehicles per household, this equates to roughly about 36 vehicles daily. So that's just your resident level. So your local commuters, so Estill Court is located near several major roads, including Paris Pike and US 25, which are popular commuter routes. However, the street itself is not a primary thoroughfare for commuters. Based on traffic counts conducted by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, they estimate around 300 vehicles travel through Estill Court daily on their peak hours. Moving on to the next level of commuters would be the college students that go there. So let's just use the estimated number of 1,500 students at the college. On average, 1 vehicle per 3 kids going there equates to about 500 vehicles running through there as a cut-through. So with all those 3 levels of traffic, let's talk about the med spa business traffic. So the proposed med spa business is expected to do about 25 customers daily, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Assuming that each customer arrives and departs by car, that equates to about 50 vehicles daily on Estill Court during their business hours. So realistically, on a conclusionary basis, based on the analysis of the existing traffic pattern on Estill Court, it is evident that the majority of the traffic consists of residents, local commuters, college students. The addition of the med spa with 25 customer daily travelers generates an additional 50 vehicles daily to just during their business hours. However, this number is relatively small considering those other three that are already happening. We can maybe cut the college out at certain points because they're not there. But during their peak times, those would be the numbers that we would run. So in my estimation, I don't see a huge hike in traffic flow during that 9 to 6 expected work hours.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to speak against or have any specific questions for the applicant? If you do, just please let me know if you have a question for the applicant so I could try to get those questions answered promptly and efficiently, okay? Anybody? And everybody has already signed in and been sworn in, that wishes to speak, correct? If you want to speak, just come to the podium, state your name, and go right ahead.
Okay. Scott Hill, I live at 514 Estill, which is 2 doors down on the same side of the street. Been on Estill 7+ years. And so Estill Court, as you kind of saw, is a very residential neighborhood, very quiet. It's kind of a hidden gem, I think, in Georgetown. We know growth is coming and Georgetown's coming, but we seem to have a kind of a hidden little gem in Georgetown that most of the people in this room are Estill Court kind of community, and we have a very tight-knit community. Lots of concerns about this. There's been lots of talks, lots of discussions in our driveway, lots of meetings and people discussing this, and so we have said to Mrs. Wheeler, nothing I'm saying that I haven't said to her, we don't want a business, obviously, in this home. It's a residential home. This is a residential neighborhood. This is people from 80 years old to a few months old. It's, homes, people, and this home has primarily been a residential home, although it was a sorority at times. So lots of concerns about a business being in there. Brings up lots of concerns for me. If we allow a conditional use for this home, what's to say that another home maybe on an adjacent street or even on this street then comes up for sale and somebody buys it and wants a conditional use? Do we open a door for other businesses? The parking, the traffic, as we've said. This neighborhood, like I said, it's a pretty tight-knit neighborhood. Somebody walks out in the street and next thing you know, 15 people are out there and we're standing on the sidewalk and we have our meetings. We joke and say, we're having a meeting and it's a neighborhood. We're, together. We have desserts in the driveway in our house. I mean, just the other night we had 49 people in our driveway having desserts in the driveway. We have a pumpkin carving party and people come to our driveway and we carve pumpkins together. I mean, we're a very tight-knit neighborhood. So having a business come in brings lots of concern, lots of discussions about this and lots of thoughts come into this. So I guess I say that to say, first of all, you may hear others that want to speak, and this has been a very big concern for people, obviously. I will say to this house, as you've heard some, it is a very old home. And as you know, having a home takes maintenance, and especially old homes. We have an older home, and so, and the owners of this current home now, the current owners, live out of state and have not traveled here a lot. And so the home has gone very much in disrepair. And so on top of purchasing it, Mrs. Wheeler is looking at a pretty significant investment in fixing this, hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix this. And so I guess I would say, my wife and I have thought about this a lot. I'm a man of faith. I've prayed a lot about it. I've, spent lots of time thinking about this. And I think, I guess I'm in support of this, is the essential, because we've got a home that's $300,000, let's say, in purchase price approximately. That's about the price of the homes in this neighborhood. But they are going to spend a significant amount to restore this home, according to her. And I don't believe you're going to find somebody that wants to purchase this as a residential home. No one in their right mind is going to buy a home for about what it's worth and then stick $500,000 or $600,000 in it. And then can't obviously turn around and sell it back for $300,000. So I think we realize, at least my wife and I have talked about it, and realize I don't think it's going to go to a residential home again. I mean, nobody's going to do that. So I think a business is going to end up being the one that would only be the one that could buy it and save it. And so I think this is the best of the worst situation, because we don't want a business. Nobody here wants a business on our street. It's a residential street. But if we're going to have one, because I think we're smart enough to know, like I said, that it's going to be a business. Nobody's going to buy it as a residential home. I think this is the best scenario, if you will. I've thought through what other businesses could buy this. What other possibilities? Could somebody buy it and turn it into a small apartment? Could somebody buy it and have a residential home for clients? I've joked and said I don't think the clientele is going to get rowdy and get some Botox injections and have some loud music coming, and it's going to get police have to call. So I think it'll probably be a pretty decent clientele, and it's not going to get too out of hand over there at the 500 Estill Court. So, and I've wrestled with this. Like I said, I grew up in Kentucky. I spent most of my life in law enforcement. Since I was a little kid, I don't know, something about me, I protect people. It's what I've always done. I've always been in law enforcement. I'm military police, combat veteran. I've been protecting people all my life. And I guess this neighborhood I've become a family with. And so I'm very protective, and I just carry that on my shoulders. And so I've wrestled greatly with this. And I just, in wrestling with this, about a week ago, I guess now or so, there was a knock at the door. And somebody's standing in my door I've never seen before, and she says, "Hi, I'm Jasmine Wheeler. I'd like to have a conversation with you." And so she came into our home and spent an hour talking to us. And then we kind of helped coordinate the next evening. She stood in front of the house and said, "I invite any neighbor that wants to come, and I will stand and look you in the eyes and I'll answer your questions." And she did that. And to me, I will tell you, that was something that weighed very heavy for me, in that she was willing to stand there, look you in the eyes, and answer questions. Answer anything you wanted to ask to the neighbors. So I guess I will tell you, like I said, people may speak here, and I know the hearts of this community. We don't want a business. But I just think we realize if this doesn't go through and Mrs. Wheeler can't buy this, then it goes back on the market. It's been on the market for a year and a half or so now. And how long does it set on the market? And then it ends up like a house around the corner that's kind of close to somebody else, Mr. Perkins across the street, that is on Hamilton and what is that? The other street that Clinton is just completely falling in disrepair. And are we going to see Estill, 500 Estill, look like that in a year and a half or 2 years?
I hope not.
So that's our worry, at least from my perspective on this, is that if it doesn't go through and she is not able to purchase this, how long does it sit there before somebody else comes along and makes it a resident and says, "I want to buy it for, $300,000 and stick $600,000 in it, and now it's only worth $300,000. No offense to any of us, but we're a $350,000 neighborhood. You can't sell a $900,000 home in the middle of that. So I think we realize that it's gonna have to be a business that would be the only one that could save it. And if she agrees to stick to this and restore it back to its former glory, I would love to see that. We were fortunate enough to tour it recently, and I will tell you, it's in very bad disrepair. The home is much worse than I kind of thought it was. And so I would love to see it fixed, and I'd love to see it back in use and back restored. So I guess in my opinion, this is the best of a worse situation. So I speak on her behalf that I think it should be approved. I'm sure there's neighbors here that will speak and probably say the opposite, and I understand their concerns. But I think it's the best scenario we got. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add? Go right ahead.
My name's Jody Hadaway. I live at the corner of Estill Court and Clayton Avenue, and my backyard, my driveway, back porch, my back property is on Estill Court. I noticed that the application cites a list of businesses that operate in the same neighborhood as this proposed business, and I speak as a homeowner who lives next door to one of the previously approved businesses in this region or zone. And I feel a bit concerned that if the proposed business is approved to operate on our street, then we further open the door to future businesses who will then cite tonight's proposed business as a justification for more business operations on this residential street. I have listened carefully to the traffic report, and I appreciate that work being done. There are a lot of cars that pass through Estill Court to access Georgetown College. Also, we get Garth Elementary car line people on Estill Court a lot. They're looping through, and I don't know if that was part of your analysis as well, or maybe not since it's different hours, but there are a lot of cars on Estill Court when I'm sitting on my back porch, depending on the time of day. It's a 15-mile-an-hour street, and usually people are not going 15 miles an hour. But there are a lot of cars, and I feel that I feel concerned about additional business traffic as a homeowner there. Because it's a narrow street and there's street parking, many people like me, because they're older houses, there's just a small driveway, there's a one-car garage, so we do have to park some of our vehicles on the street. So I'm glad to see the application had said one of the parking options was for street parking. I'm glad to see that's been altered, but as you drive down Estill Court, because of the spaces there that is residential parking, if there are two cars coming in the same, trying to pass at the same time, one of them has to pull over in order for the other car to pass. And so again, if you add 50 cars a day, that's not nothing, is how I feel about that as a homeowner. Let's see. So, but I feel less concerned, thank you for that, about me not being able to park close to my house. So I'm glad about that change. Scott's already said, Estill Court is a quiet residential neighborhood. We're a tight-knit group of neighbors, and I really want to protect the very unique environment that we have. And personally, I don't feel that businesses have a place on this very small residential street. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Board, Mr. Perkins. Excuse me. My name is Philip Ivy, and I live at 206 Clayton Avenue. We're the house that if you go straight down Estill Court and over the curb, you'll hit the front of our house. We've lived there for 20 years, and I'm just going to go through some quick concerns. The increased noise is one concern that I have. Increased traffic is another concern. It's a narrow street, and like Ms. Attaway said, when two cars meet, somebody has to pull over out of the way. We have 3 grandkids that for 17 years have been, in one form or another, walking over or riding their bike over from Main Street down Estill Court. And so increased traffic up on that end, any congestion would concern me. Be a danger to them. Limited parking. I realize that although a person has good intentions, if the parking lot's full and it's going to overflow onto the street, that's just a fact. The neighborhood feel, like Scott said, is wonderful. I look forward every year to about 3 or 4 times a year that I get to go over their house and eat, which is a really, really fun time. And I would be concerned about property value. It's true that I guess Estill Court's maybe about a $350,000 range. Ours is about 518, and that would concern me that more traffic and a business could hurt that. That's what I'm gonna have to live off when I get a little bit older there, so I don't want the value to go down. Not very eloquent, but that's about what I've got to say.
That's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Sammy Cottrell, 202 Clayton Avenue. We live next door to the gentleman who just spoke. One of the things I wanted to clarify in the one of the conditions, I believe that you all said that the staff said that there is no sale of any product. Is that correct? In there, it said no sale of product. And I was wondering if you're selling any product.
They have at-home procedures.
Okay, but no sale of products, because usually a salon has products which would increase some of the traffic flow, was my thought. So if it's not, that wouldn't. No. Okay. And that's a condition, right? No sale.
Part of the description of a professional office and what makes it a professional office and not something else is that there would be no sales in the service-based industry. So I would say by nature of the type of permit they apply for, if they were starting to do sales, if they
Change.
sell, like a salon selling shampoo, selling things, people would come in,
That
grab
was
it
my
for 5
question.
minutes and come back. That would be outside of the definition of a professional office, and would not be able to achieve.
And they would have
But
to.
she's confirmed that that doesn't happen, so.
Yes. Yep.
Right,
And
okay.
any change in that would have to be.
Right. Understood.
represented. Yeah.
All right, and the other is the slippery slope of residential properties being used for commercial property. And there's a list of 17 that she's listed there, and I believe of the 17, 16 of them are residentials that have been allowed for some kind of use commercially, which supports her theory, right? But at the same time, that's a pretty slippery slope when you take the density around that neighborhood of commercial use, property. So I would say that, you're just adding to that, and the more you add to it, the less residential it comes. In particular, I'm sure you all on the board have driven Estill Court at some time. It is a very, as they said, very unique street. I mean, it is small, and it is something that would, as far as I'm concerned, a person who has survived off of business for all my life in retail business, is that particular street and property is not conducive for it. And the last concern would be at the meeting that was discussed, that if you're increasing the impervious amount of property for the parking, that there's already flooding on that street. And in the last, people here, how many people had flooding in the last spring? Show of hands. All right, so people have already experienced the flooding, and you're increasing the impervious area, which increases the water flow, and they are at the top of the hill, which goes down.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address the slippery slope argument for a minute.
I was.
All right. First off, slippery slope is not involved in conditional uses. If anything, the presence of other businesses makes it less likely that one will get approved. And I don't know all these businesses that have been listed in the application, but the ones I am aware of, they're all on Broadway.
Yeah.
Well, so Broadway's a 4-lane well, except those crazy bike lanes, I'm not sure what that is, but that's Broadway, that's not Estill, that's not South Hamilton, that's not Clayton or Jackson.
There's one on Clayton that's listed.
Oh, the one that's next to you or the two doors up? Yeah. Which frankly, I was concerned with when it was approved, and I drive by there tons on my bike and otherwise, I've never noticed anything, so maybe I'm just ignorant of that one, but I do know what you're talking about. But the existence of those is actually a negative in looking at it, because one of the things that conditional uses have to be is if they have any negative impact, they've got to be conditions to ameliorate that impact. Well, if there's already businesses there, there comes a point real quick that you can't ameliorate the problems. Broadway particularly, at least the section that has all these businesses, they've had businesses since I was a kid. That's I don't really think is apples to apples. This is an area that's kind of discrete to itself, and that's what we have to worry about. Also,
It's the uniqueness of it.
well, I totally agree with that. And also, one of the other things that a conditional use permit, the application and the consideration is, it has to look at this situation. We specifically had one once where we denied one on Broadway, and the judge made a mistake. They said, well, there's already some down on the, 400 block or whatever that was, I don't remember now. And that was wrong. Apparently my brief wasn't as good as I thought it was, but I raised that issue, oh, excuse me, and they overturned it, because that's not the way conditional uses work. You look at that specific instance, which is this particular house on this particular street with these particular circumstances, not whether we've done it before, whether we should have done it before, or whether we shouldn't have done it before. It's this only. So slippery slope, if we do that, the court's gonna kick us, because that is very expressly forbidden by case law for, decades. So,
Yeah,
anyway.
each application stands on its own, and, we try to do that on every single one, every one that we get. Each one stands on its own. So, yes, thank you. Go ahead.
I do want to speak, well, not really speak, but I do want to mention, I have received emails from neighbors with concerns about specifically the stormwater issues that Clayton and
Okay.
East Jackson and in this area, and it has been identified by the city that there are stormwater issues. It is staff's intent and the intent of the subdivision regulations that the additional water runoff that is generated by a property is mitigated on that property to prevent it from going somewhere else. So it's not just like, yeah, I just made a complete slope into that guy's backyard. They have to mitigate it on the property through the use of ponds, of permeable pavers, to ensure that the pre-development values of water runoff meet what the post-development ones are.
Okay.
So there are numerous, I'm not the engineer for our office, but there are numerous mechanisms that you can undertake to ensure that any water that is being displaced that would have otherwise been absorbed into the soil is still absorbed on the site before it goes to a neighbor's property. And that is part of the development plan review process, is ensuring that whatever they want to do, the sloping, the types of pavers they use,
Right.
all those programs, all their plantings is meant to slow and stop that water from getting to anybody else at or better than current conditions. So I know that there's stormwater issues notwithstanding besides this property. I believe that potentially this improvements would also positively reduce the impact on other properties of those stormwater issues. But unfortunately, the issues that Clayton is seeing is something that is being understood by the city, and they are working on that outside of this permit. And so while the concerns are valid, I think it's important to identify that kind of separation of a generations-old water quality, stormwater thing, and any potential development of this property.
Okay.
So.
Yep. Thank you for the clarification. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Gus Bynum, my wife and I own a property at 523 Estill Court. I want to commend the staff on their preparation and presentation of this application. I have no personal or professional animosity toward the applicant. She's done a good job. And I understand her needs to expand, but I'm opposed in any fashion putting a business on a residential street. Jody's comments were, it's very difficult for 3 cars. There's not 3 lanes of traffic on that street. You can't put 2 car on each side and a car to go down the middle. It just doesn't happen. And what if one car is coming one way and another car is going the other way? It's doggone near impossible to do that safely. I think everybody on Estill Court has a worst-case scenario fear that this property continues to be actively neglected like it has been. There's a 6-foot hole in the cornice on the left front. A little while longer, that's going to be roof decay. And a few years down the road, we're going to have another place like on South Hamilton, right across the street from Charlie. We can't let that happen. So this applicant has a good plan to try to fix that for us. So the application is attractive to me from that perspective, but if she pays $300,000 for a property, puts $400,000 in it, she's got a $700,000 property value. This is still unique to this application. It's going to be awfully difficult for that property to sell at $700,000 for residential use. It's going to be, and it's going to make it a lot easier for this board or others to keep it commercial. We don't want that. It's a vibrant, energetic, caring neighborhood. These people care about each other. They're helping them do things at home. They're having parties. They even had their own float in the 4th of July parade. How many other neighborhoods do that? Not one that I know of. They're here because they care about their community, and I do too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hi. I'm Bill Martin. I live in the neighborhood, not on the street, but we walk up and down the street all the time, my wife and I. And I'm kind of new to this kind of a scenario, so I really don't know what you all do with what we're saying. I don't see anybody taking notes except for this man, and those are probably just minutes. But I don't see anybody else taking notes as to what our agreements are or disagreements are. So I don't really know what the procedure would be or what is even the use of us getting up here talking. What is the use for us talking?
We always love any type of public comments to what's going on in the area to help us
So
better
is your
understand.
opinions already made up for or against her, or do we have any actual input to it?
You absolutely have input. That's why you're here. We want to know what the public says about the area. That's why the notices go out.
Right.
And again, we take every bit of information, every bit of consideration for each application, and
Okay.
we make a decision. And, staff has, their findings.
Gotcha.
The applicant has their voice too, and the public absolutely has their voice as well. We ultimately have to make a
She's
decision.
done a really, really good job in preparing and spent a lot of money probably with all these lawyers. But I have a big question with all the people that surround this parking lot, this supposed parking lot, and what that's going to look like in my backyard if I butted up against that parking lot. She talks about screening. I mean, what kind of a screen? Is that a chain link fence? Is that a screen like what you put in your window, or what is it? How tall?
6 feet.
6 feet.
And that's what you're talking about as far as the extension of what was already there, correct?
A good fence or just a cheap old stockade fencing that's gonna go down the path?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's serious.
Yeah, he
I
can
mean,
answer.
if
He can
I had a
answer.
lot that backed up
Yeah, that's
against
right.
this,
So,
That's-
your question to the fencing is, it's a continuation of what's already there from what you presented, right? It's a continuation of what's already there, correct? So,
And he's the project manager, so he can speak to it.
I signed it, but I didn't get sworn in, so I can wait till he finishes.
okay, that's fine, yeah. So
so it's a continuation of the fence that's already along the side on this side? I don't remember what that looks like right off, but nonetheless, it's gonna be tall enough to hide cars. Okay.
Okay.
Next comment would be that, like the others here, I do not want another business in my neighborhood. My father did the same thing that she's trying to do here in Lexington back in the 40s or the 50s or 60s, whatever year it was. And pretty soon that whole block was nothing but businesses. It ran out all of the residences. And this is what happens when businesses come in to a residential area. They eventually move them out. I don't want that. I want to retire and die in the home that I live in. I don't want to have to move because other businesses are going to force me out. It's noisy enough in that area anyway, with all the sirens and the trains going by and all the homeless people walking up and down Hamilton Street. It's becoming a problem. We do not need any more businesses in a residential area.
Understand. Thank you. Go ahead, sir, if you want to swear in with Charlie
Yes,
real
sir.
quick when he's finished up, to address some of those questions.
Do you swear or affirm the statement you're about to make to be the truth to the best of your information and belief?
I do.
And your name, sir?
Darius McCoy. Yes, I'm Darius McCoy. I'm here for the applicant. The board allowed me a little leniency. I'm not trying to advertise or anything, but I'm with Elaine Allen. We are a commercial contractor. We specialize in a lot of different things, multi-purpose homes. We've done a lot of renovations to older homes, historic reservations. You know, when I say they've put in a lot of time and effort into really keeping the historic aspect of it, they really are. And when it comes to, you know, preserving that interference to the neighborhood, that is our biggest goal. So when you talk about screens, panel fencing, as well as plantings, things of that nature, even, you know, the off-run of water, you know, they have to go through a land development plan and a final development plan to be approved. And that's stuff that we have to submit, you know, and they're gonna catch that off the rip, you know, so that's another buffer just for everybody to think about. But just to give, you know, a little backstory about me, we do a lot of this work. We work really well with cities and city officials, and we do a lot of plan and prep. And, you know, all that will be factored into their final decision as well. You know, you're not getting a dead-end decision right now. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that, and that's also being factored.
Thank you.
Excuse me, your business again, please?
Elaine Allen.
Does anybody else wish to speak?
I'm Jeff McClung. I live at 507 Estill Court, which is a couple doors down from this residence. I'm definitely against it, a new business being in our area. We're talking lots of numbers here. We've heard from the traffic guys. We've heard from how we're going to isolate this property from us. I've lived there on Estill Court for 25 years. And as I think of those 25 years, it didn't start like it is now. I mean, there's a family here, a family there, and over time, the whole neighborhood has grown, and we've grown up. We've welcomed new people in, we've embraced them, and I can't think of a person on that street that isn't welcome in any other person's home at any time. It is a special place. And when we just talk about the numbers, I think we're missing the whole point. You may have heard of blue zones. These are special areas in the world where people live longer, like in Okinawa, for example, or Loma Linda in California. And one of the reasons, the biggest reasons that people live longer in these areas, up to, you know, centenarians, is the fact that they live as a community. When someone has a challenge or a problem, there's 10 people that will come and help them. And I have a feeling that I'm gonna live a lot longer living on this street. I mean, I guarantee there's a lot of people on this street, some old people. You know who you are. That's gonna live longer simply because of living on that street. And when we're talking about how to keep the noise out, how to keep the traffic out, you know, how to keep this business separated from us so we can go ahead and live our little community life. You know, we don't do it that way. You know, when someone comes into a new property, we embrace them. We make them part of that, our community. And now we keep growing and growing, and we're big. We're a big force, and there's people from other streets that have kind of invaded us as well. You know? We've become great friends with them, and we cherish those friendships. But this is a neighborhood, and putting a business in this area detracts from it. It's like a little black hole that is there, and they're doing everything they can to do good things for it, but it's not contributing to the neighborhood. Another thing, we talk about traffic. We've talked about numbers, and we've heard from a traffic engineer who says, okay, we're going to get 6 new people going through. Well, we haven't talked about the quality of that traffic. Okay, this is a very tight, narrow street. There's people that use it for all different things. We have several families with very small children, which I'm afraid for them when they get near the sidewalk. We have pets that realize that this is a very quiet neighborhood. Okay, so we can walk. We have walkers. We have mothers that push their strollers up and down the street. And if we increase the traffic through that area, it's going to move all of those people to a different position. So it's going to take away there as well. So, and these 6 new people that come in here, they are just commuters. They're just using this road to get from here to there. And we see these people who are not neighbors go down that road extreme speeds. We've tried to get speed limit signs put up. The city doesn't want to do it. We've tried to put up speed bumps. The city won't do that either. So we're basically the stewards of this. We're the traffic cops. We try to get people to slow down, greet them when they drive through. We're stewards of this street. So increasing it by any number is going to make it more difficult for us. So when you're considering whether this is a good idea or not, don't just think of the numbers. Don't just think of, you know, how we can isolate this property from the rest of us. It's not going to add to the community. I'm not going to live to 110. It'll probably be 109. And I need that year. Thanks.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Jody Cottrell. I live at 202 Clayton Avenue at the corner of Clayton and Hamilton. I appreciate the neighborhood. It's sweet, like everyone said. It's a community. It's families. It's small families. From my vantage point, looking out my living room, a lot of pedestrians, just a neighborhood, nice neighborhood feel. Everyone's kind, helps one another out. And I don't agree with businesses in the area. I'd like to keep it residential. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Preston Broadus. Although I live at 614 East Main Street, I don't live on this street, but my grandparents live at 206 Clayton Avenue. Me and my sister have been riding our bikes down this path for like 15 years, and I don't feel, or rode for 15 years. I don't feel a business belongs on this street because although 50 cars doesn't seem like much, it's 50 more times that a little kid or a mom or us on our bikes could get run over. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Does anybody else wish to speak?
Good evening. My name is Regina Francis. And if you remember where the X was, the shed that's going to be removed, I live on the other side of that fence. I'm probably, there was, I'm right here.
Okay.
That's my backyard.
Okay.
And this is my little patio.
Okay.
And your address is?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at 502 B. I actually, I just moved there, okay? I rented from Mr. Bynum and his wife down the street. I wanted something smaller, just because of my life circumstances. And I just moved this week. And I consider myself living off the grid, you know, in an urban kind of way, because I don't deal with any really of the traffic. I see lots of greenery behind me, and I have this quote by someone named Hafiz, and it says, "This place you are right now, God circled on the map for you." I'm 63. I'm not ashamed of it. I don't mind telling you my age. I've been through a lot in my life. I grew up in a trailer park. And I've looked for home my entire life. I've lost everything that was a sense of home to me. I lost my parents in the past few years. I lost my brother. I lost my only child. And everything that feels like home to me has been taken away from me. And I prayed about this move to Georgetown. And I absolutely, there is an unknown quote that says, a house is a church. And I feel like my community has embraced me wholeheartedly through my grief. Many of them probably don't know that I'm grieving. I don't really share it, and I don't show it. I try to be happy. I work at Georgetown College, and I walk to work. There are people that live on that street that are either retired professors, and he doesn't drive. He doesn't have a car. I don't drive my car. We have another faculty member that lives on that street. He doesn't drive. We have stay-at-home moms. We have older people who are retired, want to retire there. They don't drive. And this winter, to look out on my street and to see families with their children on sleds on the street, you can play in the street. Of course, we do so cautiously, but I have a granddaughter, and she's learning the people in the neighborhood. I guess one of my questions would be, do you plan on illuminating that parking lot?
So if it is illuminated, it would be below that 6 feet.
Because I love the dark. I love, like I said, being off the grid. I love the peace. I love the silence. And a lot of us aren't out running errands on Saturday morning. My Saturday morning is my quiet, that's my slow morning. I like to sit outside. Of course, I've only gotten to do it one Saturday, but I loved it. I just want to say that it would break my heart and my spirit to see a business there because this is my home. You know, God circled this place on the map for me, and He brought me this family, and I appreciate everything you've done. I do, and I admire you. And as a teacher, as an educator, I'm really proud of what you've done and how you want to have your business in this beautiful place. But it's our home, and it's where our children and our animals and our grandchildren live. And I'm against this.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stan Scaff. I live at 214 East Jackson, just around the corner. And I have to compliment you. You put together a great plan. I can't say enough about how she's so thorough. But having said that, I'm against it because of any increased traffic at all. I have grandchildren that play on that street, just like she just said. They'll be in the street, they'll be sledding, they'll be walking up and down, they'll be on their bikes. And then also, one other thing that I thought about is I can see that driveway where the cars will be coming in and out from my backyard on 214 East Jackson. And so cars coming in and out looking directly when they come out into our backyard and our back deck will violate some of our privacy. Now, we have fences up, but the height of it, they can look directly down into our back door, our back deck, and to the entryway to our pool. So I'm against it for that reason and others. A lot of good things have been said here tonight. And I really feel, I'm a business owner, so I really feel for you trying to own your own building. But I have to be against it because it's where I live. My wife and I are both against it. I have grandchildren, like I say, that play on the street, and it is a very tight street. So people do have to go a little slower, but sometimes they go too fast. I might be one of them, so you might have to wave at me sometime and slow down. But I have to say that we are against it for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak? Do we have any questions for anybody or any comments? I mean, the only thing I want to say is the plan is very extensive and well done, and I think it satisfies the conditional use permit. The preservation of that building that's just sitting there rotting right now is just a major upgrade. And somebody mentioned that we were concentrating too much about the numbers, and I think you are kind of not considering how good of a neighbor the applicant could be. Even though it's a business, even though the street is special, the neighborhood's special, I get that. I think the applicant can still be a good neighbor to the area, and I think it's a good fit. That's all I'll say. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve per staff report, findings, and conditions.
I'll second.
I'm sorry.
Amanda? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I'm sorry.
I was just gonna add one thing that I identified.
Please, nobody give me any grief anymore.
So sorry. That's not matter.
No way.
I know, we'll have to do such a, I'm so sorry, guys. The request.
You know, the chair can hold her in contempt and kick her out of here.
Okay.
Don't put that on me.
It's a complete misrepresentation of the sign condition. So,
Oh, do you need a separate motion for that?
no, we don't. This is, my condition language is wrong. And I didn't catch it until I was reading it again.
On the amendment?
On the amendment, I'm so sorry.
So,
Okay.
would it be the sign that was in her presentation?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so it's as presented, so it's not from what I said, it's as she presented.
Okay.
Okay, so can we,
I'm gonna defer it to our.
can you,
Well, why don't you share that with us, and I'll add that to the motion.
yeah, I agree.
No, I don't mean read it, I mean hand it to me.
I'm working. So my,
I think we're fine with the one that's hers.
Correct, yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah, I see
the
what
one
you're saying.
that's
But we'll put it in there.
One thing I'll say, I showed that property not long ago. I'm thrilled that the neighborhood is gonna get to keep
42
it.
inches
Because
tall.
I think I met Scott that day I showed it, and I was like, wow, what a great neighborhood. I hope this doesn't sit here, because it is gorgeous.
All right.
Okay. I know.
Did you approve it in your neighborhood?
Okay.
I would.
You don't
Yeah,
want that?
well,
Because of the type of business it is, I would.
Go ahead.
The
Yeah.
difference is, it's supposed to be 42 inches tall on the sign, 4 feet square, not the other way, which
Yes,
I believe is what Elise said.
Yes,
So
I-
42 inches tall, 48 inches square.
Okay,
Okay,
so we
4 square
can,
feet.
so we can.
So I will append that to your motion.
Okay, You're okay with that, Jeremy? All right, so Jeremy's still okay with presenting that motion. Are you still okay to
Can you all say,
second it?
can I say something before you do this about the signage?
Sure.
So that's like the rationale is a hard, my name's Louise McClung. I live at 507 Estill.
And you've been
And-
signed in and sworn
I
in?
have.
Okay, thank you.
And the rationale is it's a hardship for the business. But it's on a residential street. So I just don't, I mean, put it on the wall, but it's like, you choose a site that's a residential area, then that's your hardship. It's not, it should not be a freestanding sign. I mean, I'm sorry if it's not as visible, but if you're on a website, you can give directions, you can say this is what it looks like, they'll find it. But that wasn't in the original proposal that I looked, and then we come here and then it's a freestanding sign. So that's what I wanted to add. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Could you just tell me your name again? I was
First
writing.
name's Louise, the last name is McClung.
Oh, okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does that change any?
No, it doesn't
Anything
change
on your
anything. And I wanted
your
to
motion?
share something with you guys, because I know that for the people that are hearing this, and then this is it's like, why would he be so quick to say motion? It's not something I've thought of before. Actually, I voted no on this last time, whenever it was going to be in a different neighborhood. And one of the biggest issues is the traffic, the congestion, because of where the actual office, the house was going to be located. But I will tell you, I shared one of the same things with that group of people, is that since I've been on this board here, you will not find a more meticulous person that you're working with, getting the information, going through all these different steps. I understand it. That's your way of life. I'm sorry that things like that are going to change, but I also will tell you, being in Georgetown for just now 8 years myself, and I've ran for office here too. This city is changing in ways that we can't imagine. And well, I know, and that's where I'm saying, like, you have to be involved in the policy part of it, coming out and talking about it like you do. Just like we said on this board, the last time that we voted to say nay to this, it was 3-2. So it was very close to being an approval decision then. And
You've already voted to approve in your head, every one of them.
no.
No, we have to come to a decision. That's why we come here to discuss it.
No, sir. And then you probably have not, but you probably not listened to everything I just said, because, no, I've not, from the very moment, said I'm going to approve this, because last time I disapproved. And I didn't say this time I'm just going to approve.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. I've been on this board for a couple of years.
Yeah.
We are also meticulous. We make great decisions for what's best in the community. Not everybody's going to be happy every time. We understand that, but we are unbiased. We're diligent. We're very fair in the decisions we make and the work we do. I'll just say I can stand by that.
It's just not right. You wouldn't want it next to your house.
I understand.
Can I just say one thing? I won't say what is near my house, but I live on a dead-end cul-de-sac. I've been there for 35 years. There's something there that I don't approve of, but that's how the city's evolving and it's changed. So I have to go along with that change, I could just go down there and make the decision and say that it couldn't happen. And it was brought before a board, but I mean, it just wasn't for me to make the decision. And I was unhappy, that's the reason I understand. I feel your pain because I've been there for 35 years. I thought it was gonna always stay the same, you know what I mean? And the people that live with me, the next person, they've been there for 25 years, so, So I understand your pain, but you can ask for a better neighbor. I'm just gonna say that's my opinion.
Okay. Is everything good as you presented your motion?
Yes, everything's good.
Is everything good with your second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your help. Do we need to do anything else before closing, or are we good?
That's red.
Oh, that was separate,
About that
right?
date.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.